This episode of Ladder Legacy is proudly sponsored by the Bedford Group Insurance, helping families and businesses protect what matters most. Whether it's coverage for your home, your family, your team, or your future, Bedford's got your back with the best reliable insurance solutions in Florida. Visit our website to learn more, bedfordinsurance.com. And now on to your episode.
Hey everybody, this is Rudy Romero with From Ladder to Legacy. I'm here today on this very rainy South Florida day. At least it feels like it's been days at this point, with Caitlen Macias, who is the founder, CEO, and the Bot Queen. Interestingly enough, named Bot Queen is the company, who is working on AI and is impacting nonprofits and small businesses and helping them grow and grow strategically. Caitlen, thank you so much for coming on today. We're excited to have you. How's your day going so far?
You know, it's awesome. And I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And I'm really excited to share my experience and really be part of this great conversation.
Awesome. Me and Caitlen had spoken a few times before coming on the podcast, and I wanted to have her on because her background is so interesting. She currently is the CEO of Bot Queen, which is working on AI stuff, but she has a master's in social work in Columbia University. She went to William & Mary, which is a school I was almost going to when I was in Virginia, and has just had a really interesting background and through the years worked with different foundations. And I found myself so interested in her story that I had to have her on here and had to beg and plead and ask because I wanted to find more about her. So tell me, right now with the AI, is Terminator coming? Are you going to take over the world with this stuff? Kind of tell me a little bit more about what you do with the AI.
Sure. So really our mission at Bot Queen is to make AI accessible, not only for small nonprofits, larger ones, small businesses. And right now we're also moving into the enterprise space as well. I have a really amazing relationship with Next, which is a development company. And so we really have the opportunity to work with them and have the clients that I bring in be able to build their own technology. So what does that look like? We're building AI agents, AI chats, full-scale apps related to AI. And then what I definitely do on the Bot Queen side is I have three main pillars. So the first is training. So I go into nonprofits, small businesses, and I do training on how to use ChatGPT, best practices for prompting, Canva, and a lot of other training tools that people can implement in their business right now. Coaching. So I've started doing one-on-one coaching, especially for people that are beginners that don't even know what AI is and how to download it and how to use it. And then the consulting piece as well. So working with Next, we're really able to work with clients to make sure that they're on the right path to implementing AI. And some of those consulting services are really part of that. And so I think for me, what really gets me going in terms of this industry is being able to be like a magical fairy and tell people that, you know, their dreams can be a reality. So I have clients come to tell me, I had someone yesterday in the manufacturing industry who really wants to build out a solution to help manufacturers apply for grants. And we're having this conversation and he's like, wait, that's possible? And I'm like, yeah, that's possible. And so I think a lot of people are not educated on the capabilities of AI right now. And I think they're not dreaming as big as they should be.
So when people think of AI, and I think this is just the ignorance on it, right? We all just know the word ChatGPT. We've heard of Gemini, right? We've heard of like some really and I mean, I'm sure you can just dive so deep into this, but like high level, what is AI? Like what are we looking at here? So when we say AI, I know encompasses so much, but for like the normal viewer who's probably sitting in their car, who's, again, used ChatGPT or Gemini before, like what is AI and how can it be a solution for businesses?
Sure. So the real crux of it is AI is the ability for machines or computers to generate human-like language. So when you talk about ChatGPT, that's what we call a large language model. And so essentially you have the input. Let's say you want to find out how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. That's the input. Then the large language model is trained on a whole bunch of information. And then with prediction, it predicts, with a certain amount of accuracy what the answer is, right? And so I think the owl from that licks the lollipop says it's 3, but I can confirm that it's different I think it's a lot more than that.
I think it's 392 if I remember correctly. It's been about 15 or 20 years since I've tried, but it's somewhere around.
You should try. It's like a 1, a 2.
And I feel like we may be too old for people that are watching this. Like the owl, just so everyone's aware, was a lollipop commercial. I know we may sound old here talking about lollipop commercials, but those used to be a thing, everybody. And those were commercials are this thing that happened between your time between Netflix and Hulu, by the way. I know no one knows his cable anymore, but for those younger people out there who may not know.
And if you're not paying for Netflix, I think they still have commercials. So,
Gosh, sounds terrible.
But anyway, really the crux of AI is the element of machine learning. So what is machine learning? It means that the AI learns from itself, right? So if you've ever used ChatGPT and you're like, why does this ChatGPT know so many things about me, and it knows how I talk and it knows different things? It's because it's basically training itself, right? And it doesn't mean to be specifically programmed, right? So how is that different than, for example, an email automation? It's different because an email automation, you kind of have it segmented out to do a specific thing, right? You say, hey, I want to send this email to 200 people, and then it sends it, right? And it automatically does it, but it's not at all really like thinking for itself, right? And so I think there's a lot of conflation right now around AI versus automation, but I encourage people to think about it as two different things that can work together, right? So it could be, for example, like you have some sort of email automation. Once you collect all that data from the emails you send out, you can use, for example, an AI to analyze that data and then make predictions on what you should do next for your strategy, let's say. And so really where I see businesses using AI is a variety of things. So the first thing could be, for example, for customer service. Right now, there's a lot of great platforms that can, for example, help people navigate a website, chatbots. For example, AI voice agents. So let's say you're calling, for example, for a prescription. Instead of talking to a real person, the AI is walking you through a series of prompts to get you the information that you need. And then aside from customer service, really in the nonprofit world, thinking about like program delivery, thinking about even how can we automate or incorporate AI into the financial piece. I mean, I really think that there's going to be, for each different kind of business, there's going to be a multitude of ways that AI can help both improve efficiency, saving people time, and then also improving the impact. Like I always talk about AI for impact because I'm like, efficiency is great. But then how are we advancing, for example, a nonprofit's ability to serve people and give them access to food, for example? And how can we use AI to do that?
Interesting. So again, it's more than just asking it how to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. And what I've found, and again, I've implemented a few different AI strategies in some of my businesses, is that it's not as difficult or as an arduous undertaking, but you do need somebody who knows how to help you. And I found that has been the biggest thing for me is unless you know what you're talking about, which you do versus me, and probably some of our listeners here, if you don't have somebody who is a resident understanding or has some understanding of it and has had background, it can become quite confusing. I mean, I've spent some money on different AI programs in the last 6 or 7 months, some that have been really well. So GHL, Go High Level, has been a great, there's great automations like you talked about, and there's some AI components to it. But I've also used, like you said, the voice AI, text AI, all of that. And I've swung and I've missed. But it sounds like having a really strong, technologically advanced person in your corner, like a CTO almost, who has that information, understands that, is really going to help you get to the end goal, which is not necessarily removing humans, but reducing tasks. Is that really what we're looking for here, is to create automations and creating efficiencies? Is that really what AI's big hope is to be?
Definitely. And I honestly think that sometimes people are too focused on, okay, I need to find the right product. And they really haven't had those conversations that are needed to develop or implement that product, right? So we talk about something called AI readiness. So what is AI readiness? It's the ability for a business or a nonprofit to be at the right stage for AI, right? So we look at a few different things. So organizational culture. Like if everybody is really like siloed, if you don't really have a great organizational culture, not ready for AI. Leadership. The most important thing is that the leadership is on board, understands what AI is, and has started to develop a strategy, right? Then we have to look at AI skills of the people that are running the business. If nobody's ever used a computer before, we're not at the right stage to implement AI, right? The workflows and processes. A lot of people are too focused on what kind of AI can we implement, but they don't have any sort of process mapped out for how to do specific things in the business, right? Governance, what are the policies that are going to be around, for example, putting in a voice agent? right? So what is the governance structure and the policies? And then also the funding, people are really excited and then they're like, well, we haven't really budgeted for this. It's like, obviously you need to budget not only for the solution and the development of it, let's say you're doing a custom build, but then also for the maintenance of it and the training of the people that are going to be using it, right? And so we've seen this, for example, with CRMs. Everyone's like so excited about a CRM, right? And then you get a CRM, it might be amazing. Like, let's take Monday.com. I just talked to a client yesterday and they're like, well, it doesn't work. And I'm like, it does work. It's just that you haven't adopted it like among your employees and you don't have a process. And so the CRM is only as good as the information that you put into it, right?
That's for sure. That's any data modeling. I mean, if you dirty data in, dirty data out, right? It's not going to be clear. Garbage in, garbage out.
And so I really think that my sort of perspective on AI is that yes, we're going to get really excited about the technology, but what are all the conversations and the culture, what I call the culture of curiosity that we have to create in order to have successful implementation?
So who is a client? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
So who is a client that's ready for it? So in your world, in being the bot queen, which I love the name, by the way, who is a client that's ready? So when you walk into a business and you have these conversations with people, who is somebody who's ready? Because you've talked about the things that have to be in place or in processes. Is it a certain timeline, meaning, hey, the business has to be open for X amount of time? Is it I walked into a system where CRM can integrate using API into an AMS system? Who is that best client or who is ready to pull that trigger and ready to go with it? What does that look like? Because, I mean, the listeners I'm sure they want to know, hey, am I ready? I heard about all these wonderful things that should be in place. I don't know if that's really ready, but what does ready look like?
I think, there's different variations of ready. So I would say my ideal client is somebody who I'm talking directly to the decision maker, right? So a CEO or somebody that's at the top, and they already know what AI is, right? And they're educated and they're curious. That's like the big thing, right? And so they might not know all the things, but they have a basic understanding, right? And then they are running their business or their nonprofit and creating spaces for discussion. So maybe they have already invested and had a training. Maybe they have a forum where people are talking about this new technology, right? They're creating that organizational culture. The next piece is that they've thought about their data, for example. They've thought about how they're structuring their data. And that's really important because without data, you can't train a large language model. And so really thinking about, how is your data organized? If you, for example, have a SharePoint, so do you have it all, by folders? Are you well organized? And then also, what other tech have you invested in and how has that gone for you? So, for example, if you don't have a CRM yet, I would say you're maybe not as ready as you could be for AI implementation. If you don't really have your finances in order, if you don't have other tech that has been implemented successfully, And then we're looking at the governance piece. So are you an organization that has governance processes and procedures and policies, and how has that gone for you? And obviously we can look towards you eventually creating an AI usage policy. So what is that? It's basically a policy that says, hey, these are the AI products that we're using, this is how we're using it, this is how we're disclosing it, etc. And then what are the accountability processes? If, for example, somebody puts in the social security numbers of all of Rudy's clients, like what is the process? I mean, please don't do this. Disclaimer, please don't do this. And sort of what is the accountability process for that? And then we're looking also at the funding. So there's a lot of folks that are really excited right now, but they really are not at the stage where they have the budget to invest in AI. And maybe that's okay because maybe they can, for example, start to invest in training. They can buy all of their employees a course, for example, to start to get them their feet wet. And so it's not like a end all be all right here. It's just kind of some guidelines that I'm trying to give. And then as I was saying about the courses and the trainings, like how up to speed are your employees? Do they know what ChatGPT is? Are they using it? How are they using it? What platforms are they using it for? And then really have they understood how they can leverage AI in their variety of their roles and things like that, right? And so really my ideal client is somebody who scores high on all the different tenets that I'm describing. And I'll actually send you a blog that you can put in the show notes afterwards that really talks about Readiness and has a sort of like checklist. Okay, so where am I at with leadership? Where am I at with organizational culture? Where am I at with my data, my tech infrastructure, where am I at with governance, where am I at with funding, right? And so really focusing on those key tenets, and then, thinking about where AI would be most useful in your business. So if you could have a magic wand that could solve one or two things, what would they be and why? And that really gets people thinking.
It does. Yeah, I agree with that.
You know?
So again, from what it sounds like and what I'm gathering, it's not as easy as just saying, hey, let's go implement AI in my company today. There's a lot more to it than just snapping the finger and hoping that it's going to work. It sounds like it has to be a really well thought out process. So when you do have these conversations with people, when they do say they're ready and you do provide them with some of this context, how long do you typically see from initial conversation to launch of, we'll call it the agent or bot, however we like to call it? Like, how long does it typically take to get somebody in a normal situation on average? Because I'm sure, the perfect client who responds back daily, who gives feedback constantly versus somebody who may wait 3 or 4 days to respond or test things out. How long does it typically take to get to that?
Sure. So let's say, one of the clients we just onboarded around a month ago. So, they met the majority of the criteria. So they had the budget, they didn't have the governance piece, they did have well-structured data, and they had a leadership that was willing to move this project forward. So it took about, I think, 3 to 4 months of discussion to get us to the point of signing the deal. And the use case is, and when I say use case, it means how the AI is being used. The use case for this is for them to be able to safely interact with their own data related to their grants. And so they're a foundation, and so they give out a lot of grants, and they have a lot of personal information on the grantees. And so they didn't want to use ChatGPT or any other of these third-party models. And so we're building something, basically an AI chat in an enclosed environment so that they can interact with their own data using AI. And so now we are probably in month 2 of development, and I think we probably have 1 more month until we enter the phase of them fully being able to use the platform. And so development usually can take between 6 to 12 weeks. And so that is what I want to say, Rudy, to everybody, is this is a collaborative process. And so when you hire a development company, it's going to be a discussion and a collaboration between the development person, like the lead engineer, let's say, and then, whoever is project managing on the client side, and the leadership as well. And so what I find sometimes is that people are like, okay, we already paid, this is great. It's like, no, we need to be able to access certain systems. We need to have questions. And then we need you to test out the platform. And so really being able to also have space as the client to do this project. Like, do you have somebody that can be dedicated to the project? Do you have somebody that's knowledgeable enough to work with a lead engineer to get this done? Those are my favorite clients. But if you're going to leave our email just hanging out for 2 weeks and you don't really have a person dedicated to managing the project, really the development is going to go a lot slower. And, that's kind of all I can say in that regard.
Yeah. So again, it's not as easy as just flicking a light switch on. There has to be somebody willing to jump in and do the work at the corporation level to help assist you. And I think that's where, at least the systems I've used before, I think that's where some of the mistakes were when I had jumped into it, is that we weren't given a lot of this good information that I think people, if anyone who has not implemented AI yet, I don't understand how much more I could tell you how valuable this is, because you don't understand. When you jump into this, you think it's just you snap a finger and everyone is one size fits all. But every bot, every agent has to be trained for a specific model, for a specific thing. So it's not just, hey, let's just apply what Rudy does here in his West Palm world. Let's go apply it to someone in Missouri. 2 totally different places, 2 totally different states, 2 totally different business models. The only thing that's the same is the person helping you build it. And other than that, there isn't really much else that's the same in it. It's all specifically built out. And I think that's where people make such a misunderstanding with AI, that it's just a one size, because I think it's just because of ChatGPT, right? Everyone just goes on there. Yeah, I did the same thing and you did the same thing. Oh, we almost got the same answer, right? Oh, that's so cool. But that is 100% not what it is. And I think it's great that you're kind of warning people. There's more to it than that.
There's a difference between, for example, downloading Go High Level and starting to use that. That's kind of it's a template essentially. We use HubSpot internally, but it's a CRM and it has certain, capabilities, right? But when you're looking at a development company like the one that I work with, and you want something that's custom, it's going to require what I call a consultative and collaborative approach, right? And so we're going to work together as a team. We're all now on this team and we're working towards this goal. And we also all understand that there can be things that can happen. Certain times when we've done integrations too, it's a lot more complicated than we anticipated. So there's a delay, but we're all working together towards this larger common goal, right? And so I think having that approach and realizing like, hey, we're going to be on this team and we're going to build this together, I think is really important.
Yeah, but that's good. And this is the point, right? They hire somebody like yourself. It's not, this isn't just, throw something at the wall and hope it sticks. You're creating a collaborative partnership with the client. And this is not just a one size fits all model. This is meticulously adjusted to work for them to the point where they have to be involved. There has to be involved. Right. And involvement isn't a question. It has to happen. And I think that's amazing that you're saying that now. And I hope this part of this, you add this to your website so people hear it, so yes, they can hear. It's like, yes, hey guys, we warned you. Remember we talked about it's a team effort here. This isn't just, my team comes in and the bot queen just bots it all together. It's not, doesn't work that way, right?
Absolutely. And I think, partially to blame is this culture of, templated and one size fits all. But really what we're trying to do here is boutique. We're trying to build something that's actually going to work for your business. And I'll give you an example. We have one of our favorite clients. I love them a lot. And they came to us and said, hey, we currently have a subscription to Jotform. Probably everybody knows what Jotform is. We're going to have to pay $11,000 next year. First of all, my eyes just popped out of my head. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And they were like, well, we really need a system that's going to be able to capture case notes and data and information when we have client meetings and things like that and sessions. And so what we told them is, hey, we can actually build you your own, Jotform style platform that, of course, is going to be a larger initial investment, but then you're going to have this, till the end of time. And so really it's, do you want to invest, $200 a month for the next 20 years, or do you want to invest a larger sum up front and build something that's actually going to work for you? And I think that's still the discussion that we have with people, is that, it's probably feels good to just pay $20 a month and get something that doesn't really work. But what if we can get something like when you go and put on a tailored custom suit? Like, of course it was a larger investment, but then you have this and then you're able to tweak it accordingly. That's really going to fit what you need.
So the real question is how'd you start Bot Queen? What got you into it? Because again, obviously your background is definitely not, it's not that. So how did you get into it? What was the thing that kind of sparked your interest in it?
Really, I think I've always been an entrepreneur. So I think when I was around 10 or 11 years old, I think is the first time that I was really introduced to entrepreneurship. And my mom actually helped me start a monkey stuffed animal business with like taking long socks, cutting them, sewing them, and making them into stuffed animals. And I ended up selling them at a local toy store. And that was like my first little business. And so I always knew that I was going to be running some sort of enterprise, right? And I've always been the person that is up at night, 3 a.m, thinking about different ideas and visions and solutions. And so really, I think it's been an evolution of who I am both as a person and as a professional, starting from that kind of small seed of being an entrepreneur.
That's amazing. So a lot of people don't have that. They don't think of it that way. They don't say, hey, when I was X years old, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Most of them, they grow into it, but it sounds like you were always going to be that. So before you got into Bot Queen, before you started this company, what were you doing anyway?
So I really started my career when I was 17 years old. I thought, I really love the nonprofit sphere, and I always wanted to start my own nonprofit. And so that's what I pursued in college. So I went to William & Mary, go Tribe, go Tribe. And I essentially, the approach that I took, which is, I actually would still recommend this to people. I picked out classes that I thought were really interesting. That was my approach. I know it sounds crazy.
No, I mean, that makes, the whole point of college is to learn something. I mean, why go in a class that you're not going to pay attention in or want to even hear about?
Exactly. And so I selected classes that were, interesting enough, sociology, political science, and gender studies classes. And that totally opened my mind. And I know right now sociology and gender studies, it gets a really bad rap, and a lot of people have been really like saying bad things about it, but I would say that I would do it again. Like just being able to learn about the way that the world works. It's all made up. It's all a system, and we're just individual. Rudy's a person in the system. I'm a person in the system, and you can't let the system define you. And so that's really like the crux of what I learned. And I also learned that there's a lot of discrimination that happens. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of systems that were created to disadvantage certain people, right? And so by studying basically how society and the world works, I think I got a really interesting perspective that not a lot of people have in tech.
Yeah. And do you think that is something that the tech industry needs more of? Because again, I think women, and I don't know the statistics, and we had Nita Patel on here not that long ago, we talked about women in tech. Do you feel like women are still not, they're grossly undervalued in tech, or is it getting better? What are your thoughts on
I think it's definitely getting better, but I think that it's still a heavily male dominated field. And I think that women are still not looked at as experts as much as men are. And I also think that a lot of the training that's being done on these large language models, OpenAI, et cetera, most of the engineers that are in the back end are men. And so if you think about it from a diversity standpoint, the information that these large language models are going to have could be very biased, right? Could also be biased against race, right? And there's a lot of concerning things even related to Trump's AI action plan wanting to take out diversity, equity, and inclusion from AI, right? And so when I think about myself and a lot of the communities that I've worked with over the years in the nonprofit sphere, I'm concerned. I'm concerned that not enough people are having conversations about AI's impact on the environment, AI's impact on marginalized communities. And it's like, oh, efficiency, 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 but at what cost, right? And I'm not saying I'm anti-AI, I'm saying the opposite, but I'm trying to be a voice that is having conversations with people so that they can open their mind up to maybe some of the things they haven't thought about.
Yeah, and it's perspective, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. If we're going to take something, if AI is supposed to give us more time, right? It's supposed to help us be more efficient. There needs to be an understanding of perspectives. Because at the end of the day, if we're getting all this time, what are we doing with it? What are we doing with the time that we're getting back by having AI? Are we having meaningful dialogue and conversations to create a better tomorrow? Or are we just pissing it away on Netflix and Hulu and just watching TV, right? Are we really taking our time to figure out what the next tomorrow is? And it sounds like that's, again, the things that you're pushing back on right now. So before you got into tech, said you were in, William and Mary. Is that what you wanted to do? Was leaving high school into college, becoming, I think you were in a sorority possibly at some point, or honor society? What kind of led you to William and Mary, and what kind of led you to do a Bachelor of Arts degree for government studies?
Sure. So, like I said, I kind of stumble upon, gender studies and sociology and political science. And I actually was never in a sorority. And so I just didn't like the vibes. That's such a Gen Z thing for me to say, but they just weren't my people. And so I actually was the head of a research group for 1.5 years. And we actually did what's called community-based participatory research with a community in rural Nicaragua. And so
Interesting.
basically studying how communities organized around a shared goal. So their goal was to improve water access. And so we would actually go to this very, very rural community, no light, no water, no internet, and meet with people to understand how communities organize. And then I was also a fitness instructor. So I actually used to teach barre, which is a combination of Pilates, yoga, and ballet. And that's kind of how I, really got my start in wanting to like teach people. And I think that kind of eventually evolved to what I do now with AI training and sort of built my confidence in being able to teach older ladies how to do splits and pulse and, all the things. And
Well, if you can do that, AI is a breeze then, I can
yeah,
imagine.
absolutely. And keeping to the music and just a lot of my life has been very disciplined. I grew up in a very an immigrant household and being very disciplined. And so I always felt like whatever I was going to do, I was going to put my full heart into it. And I've just loved every evolution of Caitlen. Every evolution of me has really brought me a lot of joy. And so to answer your question, after I sort of went to college, I graduated and I started working in the philanthropic and nonprofit sector here in Palm Beach County. And I've called this place home for quite a long time, ever since I was 3. And I started working with a philanthropist. I started working with a lot of different organizations. And really, like, I'm sure you're looking for the aha, like how she started Bot Queen. And so that really came about when I started to learn that AI was coming, right? And this was like 2022, 2023, ChatGPT had come out. And I was like, why isn't anybody talking to the nonprofits about this? And I really was like, I just had all of this like internal dialogue and turmoil. And then I decided it was going to be me. I was going to be that person. So I self-crowned myself the bot queen. And eventually I ended up forming this partnership with Javier and Thomas, who are with Be Lulu Next. And at that point, they were doing website development and app development. And I was like, okay, guys, I have this crazy idea. And they were like, okay. We had already become friends. And I was like, what if we could build an AI chat where nonprofits can interact with their own data and information in a secure environment? And then we can train it for different use cases. So like grant writing, internal knowledge management. And they looked at me and they said, Caitlen, give us 30 days. And I was like, what? Yeah. And so that was more like 2 months, but really that was the beginning of Bot Queen. And that was the beginning of me working in AI and bringing this to the industry.
So how have you liked it so far? That's the real question. Because that's everyone sees when you're a business owner, when you see people of success, they just think it's this easy thing. And, you just woke up one day, you switched the light on and you just took over all the AI. But are you happy? And what are the challenges you did face so far?
Oof. Okay. So
Loaded question.
I will tell you that the biggest number one thing that you're going to face is not the business, it's you. It's your internal conflict and dialogue about whether you're worthy enough to do this. And, especially being a young woman, I'm 27, just a lot of just overcoming that internal, dialogue of not being good enough, not being able, I'm not someone who's supposed to be a business owner. And so I think that took me like 3 or 4 months to really dig through that. Right. And I think once I really overcame that and then I started to see, hey, there's people that are less knowledgeable than me that are out here crushing it. There's a lot of people that are fronters and stunters. I think I really feel so secure now that I'm able to deliver a high quality product and service and really speak to the issues that I care about. And so I'm really proud of myself. And last week I was actually in Vegas. I was flown out to the Fontainebleau to do a conference and give a conversation to the luxury transportation industry. And so I feel like I'm so excited. I'm so excited about what's coming, the partnerships that I have, the ability to work with such amazing people. I'm really excited that the development company that I work with, they just got their first defense contract. It's with the US government.
Oh, wow.
And so that's like a really big deal. And just being able to work together as a team. I would say the second thing that really was difficult is organizing your systems. And that's why I always talk about workflows. I'm like the workflow queen. Organizing systems between, our engineering team, myself, the clients. I think not enough people spend enough time on that. And I think that's one of the most important things. And really building those authentic relationships with your colleagues and business partners. I think that we've cried together, we've fought. It's not always pretty. I remember one time, just being in the bathroom and just sobbing, we had faced a really big challenge and we didn't know how we were going to overcome it. And nobody sees this on LinkedIn, but I've cried a lot. And I think that when you care so much about your business and so much about your vision, you're willing to do anything to succeed. And I don't think that success looks like a whole bunch of money for me. It's actually more about the individual lives I've been able to change. When clients call me and they're like, oh my God, Caitlen, my whole nonprofit's now using ChatGPT and it was all because you came in and did a training. That's what success looks like for me more than any invoice will ever.
Yeah, but it's long lasting. I think you're not chasing diamonds, you're chasing success for others, right? And there's a lot that's to be said about people who are in business. And this is why, having someone like yourself on here is a pleasure, because you're not here just for the dollar, right? Money is just the thing we transact so that we can all find some semblance of happiness, right? And none of us are all going to be happy all the time. As business owners, we're all miserable. We're all stressed out. We're all not taking vacations. Most of us never eat. Coffee is our life. So is all other types of caffeine. Other types of caffeine. So it's always
not.
Oh no, mine is very sad. If you could see inside the cup, it is a very sad cup of espresso with a light dash of heavy cream. Because I don't do sugars, I try not to. But yeah, it is. It's amazing that it's something that a lot of people, they look at it. And I had a great conversation with a gentleman from the Wellington Chamber today. He's a Frank. He's an attorney, owns another business as well. and we were talking about this, we were joking, and I was saying, everyone just thinks you roll up in a nice vehicle or have a nice home, and it just magically just falls from the sky and just, comes down here and just magically gets built. It's not. It's back-breaking, blood, sweat, tears. It's cursing at yourself, at everybody, at the world, and saying that, it's not going to be easy. But the hope is you build something like you're doing now that can help people, that assists them in finding that success. And it takes a little bit of the burden off, right? Just a little bit. And the small wins compound over time, and they become successes, and they become the things that strive and thrive and make you want to be that better person that you saw in the mirror when you said you were younger, looking at how to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't just happen overnight, and it takes a lot of falling forward. And that's a term that I love using because I do it every single day. I'm sure when we get done with this, I'll have some stuff that I'll be reminded about that I missed because I'm always late to everything. That is just, for some reason, the new world I live in as a business owner, because I'm running around all the time. And you just embrace it, right? You embrace the suck, as they say. And I think it's amazing what you're building, what you've built. And I guess the real question for you, like anybody else in the position that you're in, is what's next? What are you chasing? What's the next thing? Because I know you got something there. I know you're ready to
Oh
tell me.
yeah, no, I definitely do. And so, I want to thank you, Rudy, because I feel like even in the brief time that I know you've provided so much value, and I'm sure that your audience feels the same way. Like, I was in a pickle, dealing with a situation with trying to hire virtual assistants, and Rudy was a great help. And so I think right now I have an amazing assistant right now that I'm working with, and I really believe that I need Yay! I really believe that, you need to pour just as much into yourself and your business into the employees that you hire. And so I have really built an amazing relationship with this young man. And so right now we're working on a course. And so people ask me all the time, Caitlen, like, can you help me use ChatGPT, et cetera? And I'm like, okay, it's time for me to develop something that people can take on their own that will be able to add value to them. So starting my first course, doing a lot more speaking engagements. Right after this call, I have a meeting to hopefully do a workshop at this large conference that's happening in Palm Beach County in a few months. And so really building myself up as a speaker, building myself up to develop these courses. And I think really what I'm looking for long term is strategic partnerships for the development company. And so I'm really excited about a few projects that I'm currently working on that would be, larger six-figure contracts. And so I love the training and all of that, and it's amazing, but really to be able to build my business to where I need it to go, I want to be working at the enterprise level. I want to be working with people that want to develop large, apps and solutions. And so I'm really excited to be able to have the opportunity to do that. And I have a really amazing support team and amazing mentors that have really invested in me.
It's awesome. And I for no reason see why that's not going to happen.
Oh, it's happening. I mean, we're already,
It's happening.
it's happening.
You're doing
I'm
it.
also like redoing my website right now. And so, probably when this airs, I'll be able to have my new website up and really showcase all the things that Botqueen offers, and all the things that I can do with businesses and nonprofits. And I think I'm really most excited about continuing to work with small businesses and nonprofits. I think a lot of people are like, why are you working with them? They don't have any money. And I'm like, well, if I'm the only one, then
What I've been saying.
capitalizing on that market and really working to add value to these industries. I think I've gotten really involved in the luxury transportation industry, really involved with the nonprofits. And so I'm also looking for that new next industry that's niche, that really hasn't heard about AI and is willing to learn.
Yeah. And there's a lot of them out there. Obviously, when we off the call, I'm sure there's some opportunities we could talk more about as well, because there's a lot of people who need the services you're explaining, especially in the sales world. That is a huge sales and service. Really, this is where the opportunities, and again, from my very 2D opinion, in your 3D opinion, I'm sure there's 100 other things you could tell me all about and blow my mind. I'm sure. The one thing,
Socks off.
blow my sock. I'm in Florida. I don't have socks on. I have flip flops, but I like the thought. Or your sock monkeys.
Sock monkeys, flip flops are fine,
There you go. So I like to ask every one of my people who come on, I like to ask them one question. And it's a hard-hitting question. Every single time, I just stump everybody when I ask it. If you could speak to one person, dead or alive, and ask them one question, who would that person be, and what would the question be?
So honestly, I don't think it stumps me. I think
I
I'd
love
talk
it.
to my grandma. because I never met her. I'm getting emotional, but she was a chemist, and I think she'd be really proud of me. And I think I just asked her like what advice she would have for me, and what kind of life she would want me to have. And wow, I didn't know I was gonna cry on this, but I really think that your family and the people that have invested in you are such a big part, and I would just love to talk to her and see what she would have to say.
That's a great answer. And I 100% think that she'd be very proud of you. You're doing a great job. You're building a business. You're doing you're doing the right things. And that's hard for a lot of business owners to hear, but you're doing the right thing. You're building the right business. You're helping foundations. You're helping yourself. You're helping the community. What more can anyone ask for? That is, it's what we're all here for, in my very humble opinion. So I appreciate the answer, and I totally understand. I can tell you you're not the first person who I've asked the question to that has felt that way. And it sounds such a simple question, but when you think about it and you truly care about the question, it makes sense. It does make sense.
I love that. And I think if I could leave sort of your listeners with anything, I'd say anything's really possible. I think that, we're on such a prescribed narrative, as young people, it's like, you got to get a good grade and you got to get into a good school and you got to go Ivy League. And I did all that. And I think that really, I think the crux of it has been to find something. It's kind of the concept of ikigai. It's like find something that the world needs, find something that you're passionate about, and find something that you're good at. Right. And so I've really carried that Japanese concept with me for a long time after I read it in a book a few years ago. And really, as long as you have that determination, and a lot of entrepreneurs talk about this, and I know it's cheesy, but as long as you really have the determination and vision and you're willing to work for it, I think you can do it. And so awesome, job here, Rudy. And I love what you're doing. And I think that I love the message that you're spreading. And I think other entrepreneurs really need to listen to this conversation.
I appreciate that. And I agree. Now, let's make sure we get the plug. I know we don't have much time left. So how can they find the Bot Queen?
Sure.
If they look for you, Instagram, Facebook, what do we got?
So Instagram, it's botqueen.ai. That's also my website as well. And then, if any of the listeners, you want to have a direct conversation with me, you can email me. It's Caitlen, Caitlen, at botqueen.ai. And I'm sure, on the conversation, we can put some information as well. And I'll be able to share that Substack, so that everybody can take a look at AI readiness and how they can start to adapt to AI.
Perfect. Well, Caitlen, I appreciate it. I'm sure the listeners appreciate it. And I'm excited to have this out there into the ether. I'm sure it's going to help educate some owners and some people who are interested in the industry and learning a little bit more, and hopefully it inspires some people as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Rudy. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.